Ordinarily, I like to make a script for this sort of thing, but I figure let's change it up. Get all my thoughts fresh on the movie while it just happened after I watched it. And yes, this is how I walked in to see the movie with the white suit. I know this probably would have made a lot more sense for Spectre, but the black ones are a little too tight, and well, I think the white suit is very iconic of James Bond, but let's get into this. So, in case you missed my little title there, and in case you didn't read the title of the video, this will contain spoilers. I'm not even gonna try to go for a non-spoiler review, so if you don't want it spoiled, wait until after you see it. Okay, we good? Good? Everybody going? Okay. I was surprised to see that they had the balls to kill James Bond. Just like, I mean, I get the idea there was like no other option, but like, wow. But probably in general, the word I would use to describe this movie is disturbing. Probably the main thing is, so I guess I should probably go a little bit into the plot, shouldn't I? Well, let's start at the very beginning of the film, the pre-title sequence, which I was getting worried that it wasn't going to be a pre-title sequence since it didn't really seem to line up, so to speak. So the very beginning of the movie, if you've seen Spectre, you know that Madeline told Bond that some assassin came to her house and then brutally murdered her mother. This pre-title sequence is that story. The murderer claims that his father, Edgar White, I believe is the name, murdered his entire family. Comes in wearing like one of those kabuki masks, I guess? Maybe something from Chinese culture? I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, Madeline is able to dispatch of him, or so we think. Somehow he comes back to life after being shot multiple times. I get the idea Madeline is like 8 and she wouldn't be a very good shot, but the idea that there's just blood oozing from this guy and that he is able to perfectly walk right afterwards just seems a little crazy. But one of the main things is that the mask gets exposed, kind of the bottom half of the face right here. And you see that they have a lot of acne scars? I'm not sure what they call them, just like red little splotches all over their face. So Madeline attempts to run away, but unfortunately gets taken down under thin ice. This takes place during winter. But instead of the assassin killing her, could have been able to do so quite easily, he decides to spare her life, pulls her out of the ice, and then from there we jump into Madeline. This was all a flashback on holiday, I'd wager. I don't think they ever really got married, so it's hard to say if they're on a honeymoon. But while they're on there, there is this general theme that it's New Year's Day, and this is the time you let the past go. You take a piece of paper, you write on it something from the past you want to forget, light a match, and then throw it out the window. This was the local custom of the place that they went to. So Madeline wrote hers, and she said that she had a secret for him, but the only condition is that Bond had to finally say goodbye to Vesper Lynd. This is still a pretty sore spot for Bond, being pretty much the first woman that he ever really loved, especially if you go by the books, and even the movie as well. So the next day he goes to make peace with his dead wife. He takes one of those little pieces of paper and says, "Forgive me" on it, lights a match, and then drops it right on her gravestone. So this is going to be a little bit of a nitpick, but did she come from a very wealthy family? She has a really impressive mausoleum. But as Bond is there to pay his respects, he hears beeping noise, and all of a sudden an explosion rings out and almost knocks him unconscious. Now this is one of my main complaints of the movie. There's a few parts where Bond gets stunned by an explosion. This is the first. Where when this happens, they change the audio, so it sounds as if like everything is just underwater. And, well, the hormone treatment kind of leaves me a little lightheaded at times, and I was worried I was having another attack when I was watching this. This first one lasts for a good 2 or 3 minutes. So it turns out that the person that led him to the grave was actually in link with somebody else. And there they get a really big chase sequence. The main guy is on a motorcycle. And as James Bond figures out, he only has one eye. Because in the tussle, there's a lot of fists going on, and the fake eye falls out. Now, it could be me, but I forget who the actor's name is, but he looks a lot like Boris from GoldenEye. I don't know if this was intentional, but they just have very similar facial features to me. Bond goes to confront Madeline, suspecting that this is a bit of a trap. There, Bond finds that Madeline is perfectly fine to just leave right now, even having the luggage all set. They get ambushed by a whole bunch of baddies when James Bond, driving his trademark Aston Martin, which it just pains me to see it just get scratched up like that. He pulls out his Gatling guns and then does a few donuts, and then he's able to get free of the ambush. Safe from danger, he puts Madeline on a train, saying, "Goodbye, I will never see you again." And then we jump right into the title sequence. Now at this point, that pre-title sequence just felt like it was going to be the movie. Like they weren't going to actually have a title sequence like all the other ones. And I was starting to get a little nervous because of that. So when this came in, I was rather happy. But what I find really interesting, it took a lot of inspiration from the first Bond movie, Dr. No. I guess Dr. No, No Time to Die. I don't really know what the connection is, but it was just weird to see all those little circles going around the screen. And then being paired up with Daniel Kleinman's excellent CGI score. The title song is sung by Billie Eilish. I don't know too much about her. I know she's a pop singer, and, well, I'd probably wager she's probably the youngest singer to ever do a Bond song. Her voice very much captures the tone of the movie. Very dark, very almost disturbing and unsettling. This is a very long movie, so I'm kind of surprised I was able to remember that beginning really well. So I'm going to be pretty vague with what the rest of the story is. So the main idea is that a chemical research facility that is inventing a new type of virus has been broken into. One of the scientists was in league with the people that broke in. They needed his help to be able to get the bioweapon in the first place. Now, the basic idea of this weapon is that it's nanobots. Injected into the skin, they basically just shut down all bodily functions. It is meant to only be given a certain genetic code, but as they later discover, it's hereditary. So if a family member is exposed to the corpse that's been killed by the nanobots, they will die as well, since it's passed by genetics, that kind of thing. Now, what's very interesting about all this is that M, of all people, is the one that started the funding for this project. Basically, he wanted to try to get rid of the 00 section, so he invented this superbug in order to just kill the one person, and that's it. A supreme demonstration of what these nanobots do is given at a party in Blofeld's honor. While he's still in prison, he is able to see exactly what's going on from our old friend the Cyclops that looks a lot like Boris. His eye is a camera that is able to broadcast the entire party. Now, what happens is that the chemical pours in from the ceiling, and everybody except for James Bond and a co-spy he is with melt. It was disgusting. I just had to look away. I was just like, wow. I'm gonna get the idea that biological warfare has been done in some of the other James Bond movies, but you never actually saw the people just dying. And plus, with all these conspiracies about COVID being made in a lab, but it somehow got out, it just seems like it hits a little too close to home with the storyline. So at this party, Bond is able to meet up with the inventor of these nanobots and is able to take a sample. Now, since that event where he left Madeline, 5 years had passed and he had gone into retirement. In Jamaica, I want to say. However, I also want to say that the name of the estate is the Golden Eye, which is where Ian Fleming would write most of his books. Felix Leiter contacted him and wondered if he could do this small favor for him to get the scientists to them. He's able to do so, but unfortunately, there is a bit of a assistance, so to speak, brought in by some sort of big government contractor. But essentially, he is in league with Spectre. And after Bond realizes that he went too far with his assignment, kills Felix, and then attempts to sink the ship that they were meant to contact with. So Bond is able to get out and seek passage on a barge. Now, the other thing to mention, this was a bit of controversy that was stewed up around the Bond fan base. It leaked out the idea that the next Bond would be a black trans woman. Well, about 3/4 of that is correct. With Bond being off the grid so much, they retire his moniker of 007 and give it to a black woman. I think she's cis, I don't know if she's trans, but I don't know. But anyway, she is the one that inherits the moniker of 007, and it was originally her mission to get the scientist back to M. As I've already discussed, M was the one that oversaw this entire production of this new supervirus. They call it Heracles, not to be confused with Hercules. There's a few more vowels in there. How they came up with the name, no idea. Bond does a little more investigating to try to get to Blofeld, get a basic idea of what is going on. The only person that is allowed access to him is his old girlfriend, Madeline, who, interestingly enough, she is seeing the very man that tried to murder her. He tasks her with taking these nanobots, putting it on her, it'll be perfectly fine since it's not her genetic code, and bring it to Blofeld. Now, both Madeline and James Bond meet up in the secure facility to see Blofeld. For some odd reason, he was considered criminally insane. I thought they would have just put him in a normal penitentiary. I don't know where all this rocking back and forth and flies everywhere. Where did that come from? Now, the idea is that Blofeld is being brought to them by some sort of electric lift, I guess is the best way to explain it. Madeline, though, can't stand it, and she runs out of the room just terrified. Now, the main thing to note is that the virus she sprayed as a perfume on her wrists and on her neck. As Bond goes to escort her, he grabs her by the wrist here, so the hand is perfectly exposed. After not really getting a whole lot of information, Bond is annoyed and starts to strangle Blofeld, but only slightly. He doesn't kill him. The virus kills him instead. This bit of evidence, Bond then goes after Madeline, back to the very house that she grew up in. It's a very awkward meeting, especially when you find out that she has a daughter now. She tells James Bond it's not his, but he very much insists that it has to be because both of them have the same eyes. Now, this next part right here is where it gets really disturbing to me. So, Bond checks up on M. They were going to send a trace on this mysterious masked fellow. Madeline is able to give him a name, as well as access to her father's old treasure trove of knowledge and such things. Why the family was eliminated, and who this person really is. They put a tail on him, but the weird thing is, he follows the tracking system to find that they're after him. So, Bond takes Madeline and the child away, only to find that they're being hunted. Now, I'm perfectly fine with intense action when it comes to adults. But this kid is like 5 years old, and the whole time I'm just like, this kid is going to be just traumatized for life after this. Leave her out of this. It just kind of struck an emotional chord with me. It was like, she's like 5. She's being exposed to gun violence and death and all this other stuff. It just absolutely disturbed me that they were going in to kill both of them. So during the chase, we get a nice little reference to For Your Eyes Only. Now, a lot of people know about the iconic scene where one of the assassins is stuck in a car at the edge of the cliff. So Bond simply throws in a pin and kicks it over the edge. Very similar thing in this movie. It turns out that the people that put out the assassin on Madeline and her daughter is the same betrayer that was with Felix Leiter earlier. And also, is it just me, or does it look like he can be the grandson of Jack Lord from Dr. No? There's just something about the hair, the forehead, and just that kind of suaveness. So he is dispatched, while Madeline and the daughter are held up in an old barn with only 8 bullets from Bond's trusty Werther PPK. They get taken away by this Sappho, the one that had the mask on. They're able to put a trail on him, and the thing I find rather interesting, it's as if they reference the novel You Only Live Twice. This evil villain has a secret garden dedicated to poison. And in fact, when he explains his overall plan of what he wants to do, it's very similar to Blofeld. The idea that several people want to die anyway, and he's just giving them the means to do so. So on this poisoned garden, they find out that the Heracles virus is there. It's being mass manufactured in several countries about to get it. Bond, as well as the new 007, go in to pick up Madeline, the daughter, as well as destroy the facility. Now, this is very interesting. Robbie Malik, I believe that's what his name is, the one that plays the villain in this one. He kind of reminds me a lot of Le Chiffre in the idea that he is just utterly disturbing. Every time he's on screen, it's like talking to Hannibal Lecter, especially with the way he stays so monotone and quiet. There is no emotion, but you can tell that there is an evil brain under there, ready to destroy anything that gets in his way. Good prompts to the actor for being able to do so, but it was just one of those things that make you go, So there's a lot of back and forth. The main thing to blow up this Palace of Death, so to speak, it's really just a poison garden, but I'm going to call it the Palace of Death because of the book. Bond has to open up the missile silos. He's able to do so and about to escape. Unfortunately, Sappho stops him. He closes up the silos and shoots him several times, and then knocks a vial of poison right into his forehead. I'm going to guess it's part of the Heracles virus. It's never really explained exactly what it is. He just kind of wore it as a necklace, and that's all you see from it. Bond is able to dispatch of him, and I like the idea that he does it so coldly. Usually with Bond, it's more like one shot. There, he had vengeance. He took multiple shots at him just to be sure that he was dead. Because obviously a menace to society that just wants to kill everyone for seemingly no reason deserves to die. And that's probably the other thing as well, the movie's title. So the main reason they call it that, as Bond is being assisted by the new 007. They go to get the information from the doctor, when the doctor basically saying, I can eliminate all those in your race. Kind of playing into the idea that she's black. And he says, do you know what time it is? And so she just kind of holds him by the neck like this and says, no, time to die. And then he throws him into a vat of the virus, and then he immediately melts. This is one of the few movies that are rated PG-13 that feel like they deserve that rating just because of all the gore. Once again, playing into this very unsettling nature of it. Sappho has been destroyed, Bond has been crippled, and he obviously will not have enough time next to the base. And even if he does, he will kill both Madeline and his daughter in the process. Yeah. Madeline reveals to the audience that the girl is Bond's daughter, but it is actually Sappho that reveals to Bond. For his love to them, he'd rather die. And plus he wouldn't have been able to make it even if he wasn't poisoned anyway. So there he stands, waiting for the missile strike to destroy the base. We see Bond die, but with a bit of a smile on his face. We end with the epilogue. Basically all the MI6 staff, the new 007, Moneypenny, M, and Q. All sitting around, remembering their lost comrade. And that right there is where the movie ends. Now, probably one of the things that confuses me the most. They make a lot of references to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. They have the same Aston Martin that Bond was driving when Tracy gets killed. They share the same musical score at some points. And on the honeymoon, Bond simply says to Madeline, we have all the time in the world. And at the very end, when he's about to blow up, Madeline says, if only we had more time. To which Bond replies, we have all the time in the world. And when the song ends, we are greeted with Louis Armstrong's title song, we have all the time in the world. Maybe that was kind of the joke they were going for right there. The idea that they have no time to die, but yet they have all the time in the world. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, after leaving the theater, my eyelids were getting kind of heavy. I wasn't going to cry, but it felt like there was going to be something there. On the whole, do I like this movie? Well, I'd say it was pretty good. It was a very long one, and I'm happy to see that they justified the idea of 007, not James Bond, being a black woman. And what was rather interesting is when I left the theater, there was one other audience member that said, you know, it's like they set up both of the James Bonds. They set up the new 007, and they also possibly set up the daughter for being the next to inherit the Empire. And that got me thinking. That makes a lot of sense, actually. But let's see. Would I recommend it? Well, if you want to see how the Bond saga ends, or at least Daniel Craig saga, I don't think you'll be disappointed. It was a very good high note to end upon. But if you wanted to have a fun adventure, I'd wait until the next one. This one, I was honestly just felt very disturbed by it. Not only at the idea that they want to kill Madeline and her child, but also the idea that we see Madeline's mother coldly murdered, as well as the idea of this biological warfare. In general, biological warfare just gives me the skeevies. because I know there is people probably researching into this subject right now. I feel like that is the worst thing. The idea that you basically just turn the body against the person until it just shuts down, and that's it. And the idea that if such a thing were to get out, it could just kill thousands of people. There's absolutely no cure. It's just very dark to me and a very unpleasant thought, one I like to try to shut out every so often. But on the whole, I'd say it was a good movie. But if I'm going to watch it again, it's not going to be in theaters. Being a really long movie, I was kind of surprised I was able to last through the whole thing. I was getting pretty stiff, doing a lot of moving around, and there was a lot of parts that just didn't really hold my interest. There'd be a few times in the movie where all you just see is a close-up of just one person's face. And they just do a dialogue that lasts for about 10 to 15 minutes. It makes it very awkward, and it was very slow moving. I was half hoping with a movie this long that we're going to go the Majesty's Secret Service route. And the idea that this is a really long movie, but it doesn't feel like a really long movie. No Time to Die, it felt long. That's really the best way to describe it. I know it was the idea that it was a few minutes short of just 3 hours, but it felt very much like a 2.5 hour movie. So yeah, that's No Time to Die. I'd be curious to see what you thought about the movie as well in the comments section. Personally, I just found it to be too dark. Personally, I like to have a bit more of a fun adventure when it comes to these Bond movies. So the idea that I just was feeling legitimately disturbed, which I haven't felt legitimately disturbed since some of the more gruesome deaths, or just the entirety of License to Kill. Until next time, keep having fun.